My name is Daniel Carter, and I was 72 years old when my own son sold my house behind my back. The house had been in my family for 43 years. My wife, Margaret, and I had bought it when we were young, before our hair turned gray, before retirement, and long before we ever imagined that our only son would one day try to take it from me. Margaret passed away 3 years ago. After she died, that house became more than a place to live. It was the last place where I could still feel her presence. Her photographs were on the hallway wall. Her favorite chair was beside the living room window. Even the old kitchen clock still made the same soft ticking sound it had made every morning for decades. My son, Michael, knew how much that house meant to me. At least I thought he did. One Tuesday morning, I woke up feeling unusually weak. I tried to get out of bed, but the room started spinning. I reached for the nightstand, missed it, and fell onto the carpet. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was looking at Margaret's photograph on the wall. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital room. A nurse was standing beside my bed. She smiled and said, "Mr. Carter, you're awake." I looked around. "Where is my son?" She hesitated. "He was here earlier." "Earlier?" I immediately reached for my phone. There were 7 missed calls from Michael. Called him. He answered after the 3rd ring. "Dad? Michael, where are you?" "I'm busy right now." His voice sounded different, cold, impatient. I asked him what had happened to me. He said the doctors believed I had suffered a mild stroke and needed to stay in the hospital for observation. Then he said something that I still remember. "Dad, don't worry about the house. I've taken care of everything." Froze. "What do you mean you've taken care of everything?" There was a long silence. Then Michael said, "We'll talk when you get home." The call ended. Stared at the phone. Something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong it was yet. The next morning, Michael came to the hospital. He walked into my room wearing an expensive suit, carrying a leather folder under his arm. He didn't ask how I felt. He didn't ask whether I had slept. He simply placed the folder on the table. "Dad, we need to talk about your house." My heart started beating faster. "What about it?" Michael pulled out several papers. "I sold it." For a moment, I honestly thought I had misunderstood him. "You what?" "I sold the house." I stared at him. "It isn't possible." Michael sighed. "Dad, you're 72. You can't keep living alone in that big house. That doesn't give you the right to sell it." I had power of attorney. I felt the blood drain from my face. Power of attorney. Years earlier, after Margaret died, I had signed some documents allowing Michael to help me with certain financial matters. I had trusted him. He was my son, my only child. I never imagined that trust could become a weapon. "How much did you sell it for?" I asked. Michael looked away. $320,000. My house was worth much more than that. Much more. I looked at the papers. "Where is the money?" Michael's expression changed. "Dad, it's complicated." "No." I pointed at the folder. "Where is my money?" He leaned toward me. "You need to understand that I'm doing this for your own good." "For my own good?" "Yes. You're going to move into assisted living." I laughed. But there was nothing funny about it. You sold my home while I was unconscious in a hospital bed. Michael became irritated. Stop making this difficult. That sentence hurt more than anything else. Not because he was angry, because I suddenly realized he wasn't speaking to me like a son speaking to his father. He was speaking like a businessman speaking to an obstacle. That evening, after Michael left, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, an old family friend named Robert called my hospital room. Robert had been my lawyer for more than 20 years. I told him what Michael had done. There was silence on the other end. Then Robert asked one question. Daniel, did you sign anything recently? No. Are you sure? Yes. Robert's voice became serious. Then don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And whatever you do, don't tell Michael that you called me. He sat up in bed. Why? Robert took a breath. Because there may be something your son doesn't know. I looked toward the hospital window. For the first time since Margaret died, I felt something other than grief. I felt fear and suspicion. The next afternoon, Robert came to the hospital. He carried a small black briefcase. He locked the door behind him and sat beside my bed. Daniel, he said quietly, I need you to listen carefully. He nodded. Robert opened his briefcase. Inside were old documents, very old documents. He placed one in front of me. It was my original will. I recognized my signature immediately. But Robert wasn't pointing at the will. He turned to another page. Look at the date. I looked. My hands started shaking. The document had been signed only one day before I entered the hospital. It's impossible, I whispered. Robert shook his head. No, it's very real. I looked at him. Who signed it? You did. He stared at the signature. It was mine. Then Robert smiled slightly. Your son doesn't know about this document. My heart began pounding. What does it say? Robert leaned closer. Your house does not go to Michael. I couldn't speak. Robert continued. Neither does the money connected to it. I looked at him in disbelief. Then who gets it? Robert closed the folder. Your granddaughter, Emily. Emily was Michael's daughter. She was 23 years old. Unlike her father, Emily had always treated me with kindness. She visited Margaret during her final months. She called me every Sunday after Margaret died. And when Michael became too busy to check on me, Emily was the one who brought groceries to my house. I remembered something Margaret had once told me. Daniel, don't judge a person's heart by their last name. Sometimes the kindest person in the family is the one nobody notices. Maybe Margaret had seen something I hadn't. Robert explained that the new will had been legally witnessed and prepared before my hospitalization. The house, my savings, and several investments were placed into a protected trust for Emily. Michael would receive almost nothing. I looked at Robert. Why didn't you tell me this yesterday? Because I needed to make sure everything was secure before confronting your son. Then Robert handed me another document. It was the property sale agreement. My son had sold the house for $320,000. But there was something strange. The buyer's name looked familiar. I read it twice. Then I looked at Robert. Who is David Miller? Robert's expression became serious. That's the man your son sold the house to. Swallowed. And who is he? Robert answered slowly, Michael's business partner. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. My son hadn't simply sold my house. He had sold it to someone he knew. And he had done it while I was lying unconscious in a hospital bed. But Michael still didn't know one thing. The house was no longer his prize. It was the beginning of his downfall. That night, I asked Robert to call Emily. She answered immediately. Grandpa? Her voice broke the moment she heard mine. Are you okay? I closed my eyes. For the first time in days, I felt like someone actually cared about me. I'm okay, sweetheart. There was a pause. Dad told me you were going to sell the house. I opened my eyes. He told you that? Yes. What else did he tell you? Emily hesitated. He said you were too sick to make decisions anymore. I felt a cold anger rise inside me. Emily, listen to me carefully. I need you to trust me. I do, Grandpa. Good. Then don't tell your father anything about our conversation. Why? Because I need to find out exactly what he's done. Emily agreed. The next morning, Robert began investigating the sale. He discovered something even more disturbing. The house had been sold for $320,000. But David Miller had already listed it for $495,000. That meant Michael and his partner were planning to make a huge profit from my home. My home. The place Margaret and I had spent 43 years building our lives in. I asked Robert one question. Can we stop the sale? He nodded. If the power of attorney was misused, and if the transaction involved fraud or a conflict of interest, we may have grounds to challenge it. Then do it. Robert looked at me. Are you sure? He nodded. I spent my whole life protecting my family. I looked toward the photograph of Margaret beside my bed. But I won't let my own son destroy everything she left behind. 3 days later, Michael came back to the hospital. He walked in smiling. He thought everything was finished. He sat beside me. Dad, I have good news. Said nothing. You're going to love your new place. My new place? Yes, I found a small apartment for you. I stared at him. Then I asked calmly, Michael, how much money did you make from selling my house? His smile disappeared. What? I asked you how much money you made. He stood up. You're confused. No. I looked directly into his eyes. I've never been more clear. For the first time, I saw fear in my son's face. He didn't know about Robert. He didn't know about Emily. And most importantly, he didn't know that the will had been changed one day before I entered that hospital. Smiled. Sit down, Michael. He slowly sat back in the chair. Because we need to talk about what you did while I was unconscious. And that was the moment my son realized. His father wasn't as helpless as he thought.